Well, hey, everybody, welcome to our Extra with LifePoint podcast. We're so glad that you're joining us. And this is our 50th episode. I know. Can't believe it. It feels like we just started this thing, but we just want to say thank you to those of you that just keep on watching every single week. We appreciate it so much. And make sure to leave a like and subscribe and share this with a friend. And also leave a comment of maybe things in the future that you would like us to talk about during this podcast, because we're always willing to grow and just try to figure out maybe more of what you guys would love to listen to. I'm joined by some amazing dads, Colby and Mike Atherton. Mike preached an amazing message this morning, and Colby is also in law enforcement. He's a high capacity volunteer on our team. And I have some questions for you guys because you guys are dads. What is maybe one dad thing you swore you'd never do, but now you do it? Any one of you go first.
The easiest answer for me is dad jokes are pinnacle.
Okay.
Like, I love them. I use them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely
The cornier, the better. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the more elaborate. Like, even setup, like I'm like way in. So, yep.
I love it. I love it. Did that start off like early for you, or like with age, like has that just been more and more of a thing? Or?
Yeah, there was a year where I was pulling dad jokes in just because I was looking for kind of humor, and I saw how much my kids were like groaning and suffering under the dad joke mantra, and I realized that's exactly what I need to press in on. So I just doubled down and just went in for it.
Yeah. That's good. Colby, what about you?
Oh man, I would have to say wearing dad shorts for sure, like the cargo shorts.
Yep.
Rocking a fanny pack, but not like the way the cool kids are wearing it across their chest. But I was on a mission in Santa Barbara about a month ago, looking for a solid fanny pack. Proudly wear.
Right on the waist, just perfect.
Oh yeah, shoot. And I'm definitely really into my yard, or when I'm doing yard projects. Overly. Like, just proud to want to talk about it. Like, look at this sweet paver patio I made. And like,
Yep, 100%. No, I agree. I don't have a lawn right now, but I want a lawn so bad, just to like be able to have something that I'm proud of, to, show off to everybody. Look how green it is and flush and everything. One day. So today, it's Father's Day, and Mike, your message was revolving around mentorship and maybe a lot of fatherly figures, or focusing on that. And it was also talking about like maybe the mentors we didn't have in our life. And I have a question that I want to kick off to you first.
Sure.
When did the concept of mentorship really click for you personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that, and when it comes to like intentionally understanding mentorship and the opportunity to really dive in, I would say it wasn't until I was a lead pastor that I recognized, like, oh, I get it, that there's always this influence we have, and we need to be much more intentional about stewarding that influence. And I'm sad that it took me that long. And I don't mean that it took me that long to understand, to experience mentoring. Like, I feel like as I was living my life professionally and as a pastor, I had people that were pouring into me. I had a leader named Doug Fields who was on staff with at Saddleback, and he poured into me and mentored me. Like I mentioned in the message, Pastor Scott Dudley was mentoring me. But when I became a lead pastor, I realized that was a dynamic that's always at play, and that I was just being unintentional in my mentorship, and it was time for me to become more, I would just say, specific about it, purposeful about it. I needed to build in cadence and rhythm and rigor into mentorship. So that's when I was a lead pastor.
Yeah, that's good. And for you, Colby, can you tell us maybe about a mentor who impacted your life, and maybe how, like maybe somebody specific, whether it was like a spiritual leader, a father, or maybe even it was like a mentor that you didn't have in your life, or
Yeah. I mean, it's something, you were talking about today's sermon. Some of us didn't have mentors growing up. And I think I definitely was in that group of, at least I didn't know it at a conscious level. I mean, several names come to mind. My biology teacher in high school, which it was more the way he interacted. Sometimes I'd stay after school till 6 o'clock at night. We would just chat. 'Cause I came from a broken home, so to speak. My cousin Seth, like he's in his own way, watching him as a dad was like, that's a dad. Like, it's the way he would interact with his kids. And definitely spiritual, various pastors in my life that just have been super impactful on, like one pastor in particular, Josh Hall. I don't know if you guys know him. He was a pastor here in Everett, and then he was over in Spokane area. But he was a huge impact on me in high school where, you know, coming from a broken home, you know, domestic violence, all that kind of stuff, you know, I basically got a group of guys together where I was still in high school. We, you know, moved out and got a place together. And so, yeah, various different types of mentors in my life, from both professional, spiritual, and familiar, family-based.
Yeah, no, that's good. For me, I've had a lot of mentors and just fatherly figures in my life. I grew up in a broken household. So my dad was in prison when I was 4 years old. And so just growing up, never really having a fatherly figure around. And so a lot of people come to mind that just poured into me. I have a coach right now that pours into me. And there was a interesting dynamic, though, and Mike, maybe you can kind of relate with this, where I was being mentored so much in my early 20s, and I didn't know when to make that leap to mentor somebody else. And it was in a season where I wasn't really having a lot of mentorship, and I was frustrated about it, or I didn't have a lot of, you know, male figures kind of pouring into me like I did in the past. And so I was frustrated with God during that season, but I felt really challenged in that time to go and kind of like what your message was focusing on. I was like, no, now it's your time to go and be a mentor and to pour into other people. Do you see maybe a hang up with maybe people in their 20s or 30s where they're not stepping into mentorship when they're in a season where they could really pour into another person?
Absolutely. I mean, not to overstate it, but I would tell you that I don't think there's any reason for anyone to wait.
That's good.
To become a mentor. Yeah. There's a couple of things to keep in mind. One is, to be a mentor, you have to sort of disabuse yourself of this idea that, like, come here, young fella, sit down and I'll just give you all my knowledge. You know, like that. It's really not like that. It's much more dynamic and real and authentic. But the second thing is, you've probably heard this phrase, if you really want to learn something, teach it. And the idea of, for you, let me just say specifically for you, Colin, you have so much knowledge, you have so much theology, you have so much experience, you've seen God show up in so many ways, way more than you have in your conscious mind right now. Mm-hmm. But if you are in a mentor relationship, then God brings those things to mind as needed. And you'll realize, like, while you're sharing a story, it'll click in your mind, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I went through this, or God taught me this, or like you'll be amazed at how much you're able to share. And that just happens again and again. Like, there's an expansiveness in God's kingdom, and he never wastes a hurt. God always wants us to be willing to share our authentic journey. And so that's why I think everybody should be really at least challenged to step into mentorship, because you don't have to wait. You know, I wrote a book called Glorious Mess, and the whole premise of the book is you don't have to wait until you have it all together in order to start serving God and being useful for his kingdom. Just jump in. Right now, God can.
Yep. No, that's good. It's so funny that whenever, for me as a youth pastor, I go around and, you know, asking people to volunteer, and one of the biggest things that they always say right off the bat is, oh, I'm not biblically sound enough, or, you know, I don't have enough experience, or I'm not cool enough. And so they'll just start disqualifying themselves right off the bat.
Exactly.
And like you said, those are the people that we need the most because of their life experience. And I just think that's so funny that, like, we'll disqualify ourselves so much. I'm so guilty of this also, but before we even, you know, go into it. And so for you, Colby, you know, God designed fathers to not only be mentors, but protectors as well. And with you in law enforcement, in your perspective, what are challenges parents face in 2025?
Well, I could talk about this for a while.
I love it. Let's go.
And that's that sounded probably worse than it is. But in my opinion, I think social media and distractions. Whether that's parents are distracted themselves with the daily grind of life, you know, having to work, you know, being on their smartphones themselves. But and social media is a part that definitely is related to distractions. It's scary and sad on how toxic social media is, and I think all of us in society we're aware of it. Yet we're on it ourselves. We're addicted. We allow our kids to be on it, and that's the biggest issue, I think, is kids being on social media. And social media companies are geniuses at getting people addicted. It's things like Snapchat are gamified essentially, where the more you're on the app sending snaps to one another, you have a higher snap score. And that is not, social media is not authentic. I think all of us agree it's not authentic, but I think in my experience and what I've seen, parents are pretty shocked by parents are not aware of what their kids are liking on social media, what they're exposed to. There's something that happens, I think, when we're behind a screen or even a keyboard. Kids can say stuff, like stuff, post things, follow certain things that, if it were something like actually out in the world, like say liking a post or watching a video or a photo, looking at videos was like going to a store, like in person. How many people would not go to those stores, right. So to speak, if that makes sense. And it's just, it's sad. It's scary because it's not authentic. The things that kids are exposed to, and it's our job to protect our kids. Mm-hmm. And I've heard the arguments of, my kid will just create another account. They'll find a way to, get on the social media platforms. Yeah. Or they'll get a burner phone. Yeah. Okay, but we have to have those genuine conversations of the dangers of social media.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Mike, do you have anything to add maybe on that?
Yeah, well, I would say there's so much evidence now and research around the links between anxiety and depression and just, let's call it, phone addiction. I don't know what else you might want to call it. And, but it goes across, it's hard to go, let's just say, I'm just making this up. Snapchat's bad, but Instagram's good, or Facebook's okay, but it's across the board. It's literally just being addicted to your phone. And, anecdotally, I'll share that when my kids, got in trouble, their discipline was we would take their phone. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is it would be so noticeable. Well, first off, it would be catastrophic. Right. Take their phone, it'd be world's ending. Right. And then within hours, they would be their attitude, their demeanor, the lightness and brightness and the enjoyment they had in IRL, right, in real life, was so noticeable. So it's just one of those things. And of course, I think my wife and I could attest too. Hey, when we go on vacation, we put our phone away. And it's just such a lightening kind of a space. As in, it's lighter to live like that. It's freer. It feels better to be not so plugged in.
Yeah, no, it is good. And a couple just practical resources that kind of come to mind, and maybe we can put links in the bio for this, but if you guys have any as well, a couple that come to mind is Covenant Eyes is a great thing to add on to your kids' phones. Just browser, it takes screenshots. You can set up accountability so you're getting updates on what your kids are browsing. For me, even I grew up addicted to pornography. And so at 27, even though I've been free from pornography, I still have these restrictions on my phone. And it's just a huge, huge resource. Another one is Canopy. So Canopy is an AI app that you can download onto your phone, tablets, laptops, everything. And it will scan the web browser page before you even start viewing it. And it will detect any inappropriate images or whatever and just black it out. So you don't even see it at all. It also does that for text messages. And so if, kids are, sexting or whatever, you'll get a notification as a parent what is pulling up on your kids' phones. And so those are some just resources for you guys as parents. I don't know if you guys have any other, maybe just practical things of having conversations with kids. What does that kind of look like?
Yeah. And I think it's having conversation with your kids. Ask them questions. Look at their phone. You should have their password. You should be able to access their phone. Again, that's my opinion, because it's not being an overbearing or helicopter parents. Our job is again to protect our kids, and our kids don't their brains are still developing.
Yeah.
So I think looking at their phone and then just having those conversations of, like why, they shouldn't go to certain sites or why they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, my opinion, I think kids shouldn't be on social media at all until they're older.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to just having those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ask your kids questions. What do they see? Why do they want to be on their phones?
Yeah.
What are kids posting? Get their brains start thinking.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, because it's not teaching them just this is bad, you shouldn't be doing this, but you're teaching them how to think and what's the why behind it. And so, Mike, how can parents in having these conversations kind of point their kids maybe back to Jesus as giving them more reason and more why behind it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, this would probably be the best example of needing to model what it is that you want to teach. Mm-hmm. Because any kind of real authentic conversation, if mom and dad are just buried in their phone all the time, it will definitely fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where it's great conversations, great modeling. Maybe, in the evening, we set aside 2 or 3 hours where it's just family time, homework time. Mm-hmm. The challenge with phones is the older the kids get, the more schools use phones as a way to build interaction with teachers or research or how to access the information they need, those kinds of things. So I do think there's always going to be that kind of a challenge. Our kids are a little older.
Yeah.
So so I feel like I'm maybe a few, my youngest is turning 21 so it's a little bit when do you give permission to be hey, you're kind of an adult now, so you should figure this stuff out.
Yep.
But so I think that'll be true, unique for each family. Mm-hmm. But the big thing is, why do we want to model good behavior? We want to model it because we want to honor Jesus with our life or in our home. Mm-hmm. And so kind of keep coming back to that. What's the point? The point is not if you look at porn, you're going to hell. Mm-hmm. The point is Jesus wants us to live in freedom. Yep. He wants us to live in joy. He wants us to honor ourselves, to honor one another. There's all kinds of ways to make sure that we're sort of elevating the conversation into the space of, who are we becoming?
Right.
What's the character we want to build?
Yep.
Not just in you little kids, but mom and dad as well. How do we all want to grow and live this life in a way that's connected to one another really deeply, connected to Jesus really well?
Yeah. Yeah. And creating that atmosphere of there's so much grace in these conversations.
Always.
And because I feel even if a kid gets in trouble early on and they get punished for it, I'm not even a parent right now, so I don't know when those moments do come, but it's harder for them to want to go to the parent and to, open up because maybe they just received punishment. But what I'm hearing from you guys is, no, we're coming alongside our kids. We're asking them questions. We're teaching them the why behind it, filled with love and grace and filled with Jesus. And that creates an atmosphere for that child to be okay, this is a safe place where I can talk to my parents if I mess up or if I look at something I shouldn't, and I don't have to go in and hide in fear.
Well, and if I could just build on that for 1 second,
please.
this would be, to me, I'm just going to share an opinion, but I think there's a really rich psychology behind it. Most of the time, our kids are actually already feeling kind of bad. They're already feeling anxious. They're already feeling a little guilty. They're already feeling shameful. And especially if they're doing something that they know is wrong, right? If they know porn's off limits and they're looking at porn, whatever. If, I think even just on social media, without the porn element, there's all kinds of depressive realities to it. So as parents, when we come in heavy-handed with punishment, they already feel bad. Yep. Now we're making them feel worse. How is that redemptive?
Yeah.
The idea is, okay, you feel horrible. You feel guilty. You feel shameful. Honey, come here.
Yes.
I understand. Okay, let's talk about why you were drawn to look at that in the first place. What part of that is natural? You know what I mean? Curiosity, attractiveness. These things those aren't bad things. You know what I mean? So understand as you're parenting, how do we parse this to where let's try to normalize some things. Let's try to speak really carefully about where our children are. And personalities are different. You don't have kids, but let me promise you, the more kids you have, the more you're going to know. they're all like unique gifts from heaven above. You cannot like cookie cutter this thing. And your first kid might be super sensitive and like at the verge of tears all the time, and you just look at them wrong, and they're like, "Dad hates me," you know. And the second kid comes out like ready to brawl, like, "Oh, Dad, you want to go?" One of my boys would always ask me, "What's the punishment going to be?" Like he always wanted to know before he decided.
Before I engage with this.
Exactly. Like, how bad is this going to be?
Here.
Oh, I think I'm going to go for it. You know what I mean?
That's not that bad.
Exactly.
All right. Well, last question here. Has your view of success as a father shifted over time? Colby, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been the different ages or phases as my son's getting older. You know, now he's a teenager. In the beginning, it was, being able to provide financially was kind of my big goal. Provide for my son a life that I didn't have growing up. So for that, in the beginning, that looked like I worked 2 jobs, was in college, and that's when I even went back to college. I'm working at the mall. I have that would be a funny story, a different time. But I got to provide a better life for my son. So went back to school, worked 2 jobs so I can pull it off. And then when my son was 2, going through divorce, that presented all different types of complications as well. But what has always been the biggest, I think, my idea of success, or what I believe success is, it's being an approachable dad, having fun, and having hard conversations. And those obviously conversations change as he gets older, but being approachable and somebody that he looks up to, and when he watches me, how does he see I interact with people? So being mindful of all those kind of things.
Yeah, that's so good. So good.
Colby, that's great. And honestly, I just want to say, well done, man. Way to go. I feel like one of the things I'm hearing from you is true for me. Having a child will be a part of how God propels us as dads and parents to become better versions of ourselves all along the way, right? So we're sort of in a reverse sort of parenting role. God's parenting us through our children sometimes.
So true.
Getting us to develop and elevate. So I think that's fantastic. I would say that early on, all the same thing, different seasons, that kind of deal. I'm not going to lie. I was just happy to keep them alive. I was happy to get them, graduating. Like there was all this stuff. Now, the view I have now, because my youngest is 21 this year, my oldest is 25. My thought is more like, I think parenting is like, as a parent, you're like the launch pad of their rocket ship. And are you going to be strong enough foundation for them to be able to sort of launch true to the trajectory that God has for them, right? The unique calling, the unique journey that God has for them. And so hopefully hopefully there's success in that, right? For me and my family. Andy Stanley once gave me a great quote, and I think it's a fun quote to share. When your kids are adults and they no longer have to hang out with their parents, if they still want to hang out with their parents, that's a good chance that that's a successful parenting experience. And I would say that that's great. When my kids choose to hang out with me now, it's like I just won the lottery.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you guys for joining us today on Father's Day. I'm sure that you guys got plans after this, but we just appreciate you guys taking time to just hang out, talk with us, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you, Colin.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Colby.
Happy Father's Day.
Awesome, man. You too.
Thank you for joining us with Extra with LifePoint. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our episodes.